I almost want to dive into this one matchup. If I don't know if you guys want to go into some matchups.
Yeah,
we can. Yeah.
I think when Wisconsin's offense is on the field, USC's defense is on the field, a bunch of stuff I want to ask. We're not even going to be able to have enough time to get into it all. But Wisconsin is going to have to run the ball. Their passing game hasn't been great, and they're down Tyler Van Dyke. So they're on their backup quarterback. They're going to have to run the ball. This is a veteran, big Wisconsin offensive line group. They had some success at times against Bama. They had a 17-play drive. Are they going to be able to run the ball successfully against SC? What is SC schematically going to do? Are they going to play a 10 in the box or schematically? They're not going to do it. And do you think there's an effect of playing Michigan 1 week and then coming back and having to play another team that wants to run the ball 1 week after that with travel involved? I'm very curious if you guys think that's going to be an issue and if Wisconsin's going to be able to run the ball. Because if they can't, USC doesn't. Or if Wisconsin can't run the ball, they don't have a chance to win this game.
So the thing about this game is it didn't work out in Wisconsin's favor. And I'm gonna tell you why. There's a couple of points of why it didn't work out in Wisconsin's favor. This was supposed to be like a true trap game. This is supposed to be, we just came off a win from Michigan. Now we have to play Wisconsin at home. We're high. Do they know how to win? All these things that you need to worry about as a coach, like, and everybody's worried. But it didn't work out that way, right? So there's two teams that could come out for SC. There could be a team that fix all their mistakes, because that run down at the goal line, Arnold, he just ran up the heels of the defensive lineman, which is fine. But if he goes and scrapes over and fills that hole, SC wins the game. Wide open hole, SC wins the game. There's another thing that I want to see. Can SC play through the hole? Apparently, according to Twitter/X, holding is a common thing in the Big Ten. I don't know. That's what they're all saying. We need to get used to that. They have to play through the hole.
I think that was my post. I think that's the post you saw and you disagreed with.
Oh, is that what it is? Like, holding is a common thing in the Big Ten.
Well,
and
USC fan said all this holding isn't getting called. I think I said, listen, that is the Big Ten. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
that's what everyone's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, they have to play through the hole. It's the way the game is. They have to play through the hole. The issue with Wisconsin is that they're playing after SC just lost to a team that ran the ball, and they want to come and do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
With the coaching staff, I think that they're able to fix it, and they won't be able to. They'll get plays. When you run the ball that much, a run's going to bust. Look at Army, Navy, all these triple option teams. You're going to bust one. Can you control the big runs, and can you get a big enough lead? Now, the thing that worries me is that SC's a 16-point favorite. I don't know where that came from, but I don't think it's that. Yeah, they're a 16-point favorite. I don't think it's that big. I really don't think it's that big. I think it's more maybe 10, maybe 8, 6 on a good day. But SC should be prepared to see this run, and they understand what they have to. I think this is a team that carries a chip on their shoulder, and they're willing to prove people wrong. So that's what we're going to see offensively and defensively. SC being able to stop the run and controlling the big runs at key points of time. Yeah,
and just to add to that, Lincoln Riley actually said in his presser kind of just that a little bit, Ryan, is when we're facing these runs, there are going to be a few busted moments, but can we contain that bust moment to 10 yards and not 63 yards like what happened last week? And so if they can have those where it's like, okay, one does break, but it's 10, 15 yards and they buckle down and force a punt. But to more directly answer your question, we saw a lot last week, 8, 9-man boxes and just playing man on the outside. I would expect a lot of the same. I haven't, me personally, you could answer more, which I'm going to ask you after. I haven't watched a lot of Braden Locke tape, so I'm curious of what his pocket presence or what his passing ability is. I'm sure it's gonna be better than what Michigan put out last week, regardless. So that it'll be a bigger threat in that regard. But I would expect to see fairly big, 8-man boxes playing man on the outside. Dan Lynn's system, and Coach, you can speak this. They do really well switching up zone and man. I mean, his scheme is really tailor-made to his players and tailor-made to the teams they're playing. They've done different schematic looks for almost all 3 games. But depending if Michigan if Wisconsin comes out and wants to really establish the one early, I would expect to see those heavy boxes with just man on the outside.
And that's how I would defend Wisconsin. If I was a DC defending this offense, I would say we have athletes on the edges, which Wisconsin does not have elite athleticism at the receiver spot. I would say we're going to put 8 in the box, 9 in the box, prove you can throw it. For USC fans that might be curious, I'll give you the 30-second scouting report on the offensive weaponry. It's not extensive for Wisconsin. It just isn't. Certainly Braden Locke provides a better, stronger throwing threat than Alex Orji did. Wisconsin will come out in 10 personnel. They'll come out with a couple receivers. They'll come out in 13, right? So they'll spread you out a little bit more, which does make it a little harder to stack the box. Locke is not mobile. He's not going to threaten you on the edges. He's not an Alex Orji. Not a great arm either. And he's had some issues with pocket awareness. Like he's a number 2. You know, like a lot of teams don't have a good number 1. Almost no team has a number 2 they can plug in and not miss a beat. Wisconsin's running backs, there's not a game breaker there. It's a deeper stable. You're going to see a couple different guys, a couple veteran guys. So it's not an offense with game breakers, and it's not an offense with an elite quarterback. It is an offense that's going to threaten you more than Alex Orji through the air, which is might cause a few issues. You might get hit with a play action pass where you have 8 in the box. Those things happen as well. But yeah, I would just stop the run. I would say I dare you to throw on me if I was USC. That's how I would defend Wisconsin right now. And Wisconsin hasn't been able to make people pay, for a while against teams that do that.
Yeah. Well, you saw against Alabama. I mean, obviously the score looks a lot more lopsided, but Wisconsin rushed for 149 yards in that game. And with the backup quarterback. So they were still able to move and being down. So, I mean, it's definitely a running threat. Who of that, you can answer quickly, but of that stable, because I think there were 2 guys with 11 carries. It seemed pretty well balanced, but who is kind of the lead guy, or is there truly not? Is it truly like, hey, we got 2-3 backs that will just rotate in seemingly?
Yeah, you're going to see 3 guys. You're going to see Chez Mellusi, who's the veteran. You're going to see Tawee Walker, who's a bigger power back. He was at Oklahoma last year. He runs really low, good center of gravity. And then you're going to see Cade Yacamelli, who has actually been the most explosive of the 3. He hits the holes pretty quickly. He's decisive, goes north-south. You're going to see those 3 for the most part. And I will point out, Wisconsin is 9th nationally in time of possession. They've strung a 17-play drive up against Bama. So they will try to control the clock. Mm-hmm. And that will be the game plan offensively. Defensively, Wisconsin has, I think, more. I feel better about Wisconsin's offense against USC's defense than Wisconsin's defense against USC's offense, if we want to switch it to that side.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's
okay.
Perfect.
So what we saw Michigan do against USC's offensive line, and obviously your guys' perspective covering USC might be a little different, but nationally, it looked like Michigan mauled. Yeah. Like Michigan has
that's our perspective too.
Yeah.
Michigan has an elite defensive line. Wisconsin is nowhere near that. Wisconsin isn't even near traditional Wisconsin standards. They've struggled getting pressure all year. And I think Wisconsin's in a really tough spot where they're not going to be able to get pressure with 4. But Miller Moss is really good against the blitz. He's a smart quarterback. He sees where it's coming from. He understands where to go with the ball. I just don't know what Wisconsin's going to do with Miller Moss. I think you got to make him uncomfortable, but they're going to play a lot of risky stuff if they try blitzing him. So I think the question for Wisconsin is, do they rush 4, play a little more cloud coverage, and just say, try to dink and dunk all the way down the field against us? Can you be that patient, Miller Moss and Lincoln Riley? Or do we blitz and say, we just hope we get to you? And it's a tough spot for Wisconsin fans. I think that's where Miller Moss is going to give Wisconsin a ton of issues this week.
So, and I think a lot of people, and this is starting to become my new Austin Jones, Ryan. I think a lot of people are underestimating how good Woody Marks really is in this Lincoln Riley offense. If you rush 4 and we're able to get the edge, Woody Marks is going to have a day, right? Mm-hmm. Like last week, he had a quiet 100 yards, and he averaged 7.7 yards a carry last week. Very quietly did it, but he did it. Like 7.7 yards, you're ahead of the sticks, right? By him getting the ball. You have to be able to bring one more. The thing about it is, and I say this all the time, I think Miller Moss is an elite quarterback, and you kill me if you want, but the reason why Miller Moss is so elite is because his pocket presence and his ball placement. I don't think there's very many quarterbacks who could do what he does as far as pocket presence and ball placement in college football, which is why they're projecting him to be like the 2nd or 3rd quarterback off the board right now, just off of what he's shown in the film. If they play back and dink and dunk, it's not going to be very conducive for Wisconsin's defense unless they get to the quarterback and they have to throw the ball right now. Because Lincoln Riley's a spread guy, he's going to take what you get. And if you're going to give him that, he's going to take it and he's going to move down the field on it. So that's what I'm expecting to see if that's what they're planning on doing.
So it's taken us 30 minutes to bring this up, but we obviously have to talk a little Alex Grinch, and you mentioned the defense. And we talking a little bit offline. I'll be curious because obviously he knows Lincoln Riley so well. Lincoln Riley knows him so well. So it's almost like it evens out. The difference too is, and Grinch was with him in Oklahoma, so different quarterbacks, but this is a very different offense than what it was the last 2 years with Caleb Williams. My question for you is, what have you seen from Grinch as a coach? I know he's the secondaries coach, co-DC, so it's not necessarily his system. He has the co-DC title, but he's not necessarily the one. It's his scheme. Maybe it is, but what have you seen? Has there been? Because I'll just tell you this, if you don't know the background, like the scheme at SC was not a great scheme and tackling was woeful. And whether that was all on Grinch or his other coaches, that's a whole nother podcast we could get into. So how is just the Wisconsin defense, I guess, a simple question, in their fundamentals, if you will?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. So Grinch coaches safeties. That's his primary role. And he came into a safety room that's pretty veteran. Hunter Wohler, our safety, is one of the best players on the team. There's veterans in that group. The secondary as a whole is the strength of Wisconsin, which is certainly going to be tested with the playmakers USC throws out on the field. But he came into a group that's pretty veteran. I don't think we've really seen a lot, right? Like, again, coming from the DC to a positional coach, I don't think there's been a ton of changes. Wisconsin has tackled pretty well this year, better than last year, but I don't really attribute any of that to Grinch or not. I know Badger fans are hoping that Grinch maybe provides a bit of a value add this week. Obviously, knowing Lincoln Riley really well, having coached with them, I think there's something there. I also think those things get overplayed a little bit. We've seen 3 weeks of these are the route trees that Branch wants to run. Like it's more, can you cover it or not? And the answer with a guy like that is usually no, right? Like Lincoln Riley's a really good play caller and he's going to scheme it up. So I think it's a fun storyline. There's a couple of those. We talked about Tackett Curtis. You're going to see him actually play quite a bit. He's been earning more and more reps for USC fans that have followed his recruitment. CJ Williams came over last year as well, the receiver. He has struggled catching the ball. You will probably not see a lot of CJ Williams. But yeah, the Grinch thing I think is something to be talked about, but I don't think there's a ton there.
Yeah, and Coach, you can go next, but just specifically about Tackett Curtis, it seems like he's played pretty well for Wisconsin so far. I was really high on him, Ryan, when he recruited. He got the start as a freshman. Like there were even talks. I don't know if you know the history of SC, but it's like a history thing, like 5'5". Who gets the 55 as a linebacker? There's only a few through history. It's not anyone can get it. Basically, a former linebacker that wore 5'5", Junior Seau, you can go down the list, almost have to like accept it or like allow it. And there were talks like, could Tackett finally, it's been years, like could he be? I mean, he got the start as a freshman. And unfortunately throughout the year, he kind of, digressed a little bit. Like his tackling got a little bit worse. He was not in the right places sometimes. But I think there was still a lot of upside there. So just overall from him, what have you seen from him and kind of his role within the entire defense?
Yeah, man, Ryan, I'm right there with you. And not surprisingly, sharing the same first name, we have the same affinity for hard-hitting linebackers. His film out of Manny High School, that's some of the best and most enjoyable high school film you'll ever see. He just obliterates people. Wisconsin was right in that recruitment as well. Broke my heart when he went to SC. And then he came over to Wisconsin. He was hurt. Like he was hurt in spring, getting better over the summer. He was hurt a little bit last year. He's been starting to fill into that role. And Wisconsin's just kind of let him be that athlete a little bit more. He's noticeably been better than the starting group when he's been out there. And I think those reps are going to continue to go up because when he's at his best, that high school high 4-star version of him, he's a physical guy who can be, at least in the running game, really shut down a lot of angles. So we're seeing more on that. I'm very curious, again, just thinking with USC's offense against Wisconsin's defense. Wisconsin has had struggles stopping the run this year. Coach, you talked about the running game for USC. Will USC just lean on that? Or is Lincoln Riley, is he going to have to throw the ball? Because that is going to play more into the strength of Wisconsin's secondary.
He doesn't have to throw the ball if the running game is there. And then a lot of people don't understand, like, Lincoln Riley is setting up a lot of his pass off the run. But if the power is there, if outside zone's there, he's going to run power in outside zone, i.e. Utah State. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to show that he can run the ball. And he wanted to show that he can run the ball against Michigan. And apparently he was able to. It was quiet, but he was able to. Like, you go look at the numbers, and he's like, Woody, you played a very good game. You gave us 7 yards of carry. Like, so he's going to set up the pass off the run because the idea of his type of spread offense is we want to rock you to sleep and then hit you over the top. right? So the play off the run is going to be a RPO, but it's going to be a shot down the field, 7 points, strike up the pan, right? So that's what he wants to do. So he will. I guarantee you, if you're an underdog person, not underdog, but FanDuel or anything like that type person, if you are able to bet, because we can't do it here in California, if you are able to bet the first game, USC versus Wisconsin, USC's offensive play, it will be a run. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
Yeah, I think we've been talking a lot. Like he does love the run a lot more than nationally talked about. But to the credit of the national perception of him, I mean, only ran the ball like 13 times last week against Michigan. And in the first half, it was doing nothing. So, I mean, they didn't really have an option. But that second half is when they made the tackle switch, things started opening up. And as Coach alluded to, I mean, Woody Marks, 13 carries, 100 yards, and busted a few in that third quarter. So I know he wants to, but there's moments when the game gets tight where he does seem to just lean so heavily in the pass. I mean, Miller Moss threw the ball 51 times.
51 times was crazy.
51 times, and he was getting pressured on 27 of those 51. So we talked about it after. It was a little bit curious, like, okay, you're in the game. I get it. Early, you were down 14-3, and then you were down 20 to 14 or whatever. So you had to kind of pass your way back into it. But I would like to see them dedicate themselves to the run more. And I think they will. But if Wisconsin can get a lead early, or if they are beating up the trenches similar to Michigan did, then I wouldn't be surprised if Riley goes back to just very pass heavy. And his offense a lot, and Coach can talk about this too, but he views a lot of the short passes as an extension of the run game, as most coaches do. Screen passes, shovel passes, bubble screens, all things like that. To him, is just an extension of the run. It just happens to count as a pass in the stat sheet. So they had like 18 of those plays last week. So technically you could say those are 30 runs then if you combine the running plays and the screens and bubbles. So it just depends how you want to look at it. But I would expect for sure a heavy dose of that. Hopefully they utilize the right personnel groupings for those screens and not love our tight ends, but you're not going to run a quick bubble screen with a slow tight end. You need to be using Zachariah Branch or your running backs. So hopefully we'll see that.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, you're going to see, I think your point is dead on, Ryan. Like Wisconsin needs to keep it close early. And I kind of wonder if USC is going to want to come out and really quickly try to race into a lead to force Wisconsin out of the running game. Not just because that's what Wisconsin wants to do, but also because you're coming off a week where Michigan ran a lot of plays against that defense line. Now down Bear Alexander as well. I know he's not a starter, but that's another guy, rotational guy. By the way, we could use a defense lineman. You think he's interested? Madison, cold weather? We could use a guy? No? Maybe?
I mean, who knows?
All I can say is what's the best way to say it? Just be careful if you do that.
Right.
I think that's the most politically correct way to say it. Just be careful if you do that.
Roger that. Yeah, I agree.
Let me ask you this question real quick. And I know you got to get out here. I want to ask you that. How veteran is your offensive line and how smart are they? Because one thing I did notice about Coach Lynn is he disguises blitz very well. And he was giving Michigan some fits last week. Like they think it's coming from one way. They get the line and slide and the blitz comes from the opposite way. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And we're going to see a lot more fire zones and a lot more disguised coverage. Will the offensive line be able to pick that up for Wisconsin?
If they don't, I'd be surprised. This is a very veteran group. The offensive line is the strength of the offense. Both tackles are seniors. They're probably both going to play in the NFL. The center's a senior. He was over with Luke Fickell in Cincinnati, started against Bama in that game. He was the all-AAC guy. Joe Huber's a guard. He's a senior. Everybody's experienced on the offensive line, experienced and big. It really is the strength of the offense, which also isn't saying a lot. Like it's not been a very good offense, but that's why they've leaned on the offensive line. They've had 3 or 4 drives this year, 17, 18 plays. And it's because they've just been methodically able to move defensive lines a little bit at a time. So I do think they'll hold up pretty well there. I think where Wisconsin's going to get into issues for SC fans that might be curious, that first down run goes 1 yard. It's 2nd and 9. Wisconsin's receivers have had a hell of a time creating separation. They just get swallowed up. Now you have a backup quarterback, receivers struggling to create separation. I think that's where you could see some coverage sacks, right? Where they're just not getting that open shot, and then USC's pass rush gets home. I think that's where Wisconsin gets into a ton of trouble offensively.
I got you.
Yeah. Well, we love Wisconsin offensive linemen, and we've got the Los Angeles Badgers that play at SoFi with Logan Bruss finally getting his first start, Rob Havenstein, Badger legend. So
dude, I
Wisconsin
love
always produces produces good alignment. So, well, bro, let's end with this. I guess I feel like we got to do score predictions, right? Like who will take it? I mean, is the line really? What'd you say, Coach? 16? Is that really what it is?
16 and a half last time I looked.
Oh man,
I don't know if it's moved. I'll check right now to see if it moved. But
Yeah,
last time I looked, it was.
I saw it at 15 and a half, so it's not far off from where you were at. It's maybe moved just a tick. I mean, I went on my show, and I think USC wins. I've called this a USC win since before the season. And I think, quite frankly, USC has looked a little better than I thought they would, and Wisconsin's looked a little worse. So nothing has changed from that perspective. I know some people think this is a letdown moment for USC. I think that's ridiculous. I think you're not going to have a letdown moment in the first Big Ten home opener with a sold-out crowd after you just got ran over a little bit by Michigan. Like, they're going to come out fired up. I think it's going to be like 30-20, like a 10-point win. USC. Wisconsin will control the clock at times, which is going to keep that offense. Miller Moss on the sideline. I just think Miller Moss is really good. I think the USC weapons are NFL receivers, and I think they have athletes on defense. So I have about a 30-20 game, which is a good game. It'd be another good game. I just don't think Wisconsin has the horses offensively.
Yeah, like that. Coach, what you got?
So if you haven't noticed, Lincoln Riley has yet to put up 40 points. He has even yet to break the 30 mark. I don't think the game's going to be that high scoring. I think he leans on his defense a little bit too much, and this is a learning curve for Lincoln Riley because he has a good defense now, and he's leaning on them very heavily. I think the score will be about 24-10, and I think the 10 will come late on a touchdown, like in the fourth quarter, and when the game's almost over.
That's not pretty at all. Coach, that's not pretty at all.
I'm just being, I mean, all right. It'll be 31-30 SC wins last minute. There you go.
Oh man, can't take the heartbreak there. Yeah, I think this will be a good game early as well. I don't want to, especially when we have guests on. I hate sounding like calling a blowout or anything like that. But everything you say, I think Coach made a good point earlier that had SC pulled off the win, I think this game would be a not even necessarily a letdown, but would be just closer because all those emotions. I just think the way they lost, the way this team has come together in the offseason, I think they really put together a really solid game plan. I think it's close early, and Wisconsin keeps it close. I think they control the clock, like you said. SC the offense has not started good, even against Utah State. Took them a while to get going, and they have yet to have that like really quick start. I think it takes them a while, but I do think they pull away late in the fourth quarter once things start humming. I think we finally see a USC receiver have like a breakout game. I know Zach Branch had 6 for 98 last week, but I think we finally see one get like over 100 maybe. So I'm going to go 31-14 SC.
Well, they did break the 40. They broke the 40 against Utah State. I don't even count that game, but they did break the 40 there. You're right.
Yeah, 48-0, right?
It could definitely happen. You play on the road. USC's got weapons. Again, ultimately, a lot of times it just comes down to who has the better quarterback, and that's obviously Miller Moss. It would have been Miller Moss if Tyler Van Dyke was still healthy, and that matters. But in football, quarterback matters. Unfortunately for Wisconsin fans at times.
Ryan, let me ask you this question. I see a Navy flag back there. Did you serve?
Yes, sir. 9 years, submarines.
Yeah, thank you for your service. I have to always say thank you for your service. I come from a military family. I never served myself, but I respect you guys. And my father-in-law is he's been in the Navy too. I'm a mess. He loaded the planes on the carrier with the weapons. Ordnance. He did ordnance. He loaded the helicopters and all the fighter jets on the carrier with the weapons. So he's actually worked on the one that's retired in downtown San Diego. He was on that one.
Oh, that's awesome. Good man. Yeah, the Navy was great for me.
That's awesome.
Yep. Good deal. So thank you for your service, man. I appreciate you for coming on.
Yes, sir. No, I appreciate this. This has been a lot of fun, and hopefully this is the first of many sync-ups, hopefully, between us.
Yeah,
absolutely. Deal. Yes, thank you. And I know your fans know, but let our fans know where they can find you and all your work.
Yes, absolutely. Locked On Badgers, go check it out. And if you're Badgers fans, obviously these two guys up here, go check them out for all the USC coverage, especially if we win, we pull the upset. Please go check out their shows, see the post game, see them recant everything. But yeah, definitely go check them out as well for all the USC coverage leading up to the game and after the game.
Love it. Well, good. Well, hey man, have a blast. Wish you were out here in LA this weekend, but we'll certainly try to link up and be well, and we'll definitely stay in touch.
Appreciate you guys.
See ya.
Awesome. All right, man. Thanks so much, dude. This was fun. So got you out just in the nick of time.